In a world where digital interactions define our daily lives, one podcast dives deep into the heart of what makes those experiences genuinely memorable. Welcome to Digital Customer Experience Podcast by Kiosk. I'm Daniel Paul, and I'm thrilled to bring you stories, insights, and expert opinions from the ever evolving world of digital customer experiences. Whether you're a tech guru, a business leader, or just curious about the digital realm, this is the place to be. Let's dive in. Today, we have a special treat for all of our listeners, a man whose journey has taken him from the creative world of design to the analytical realm of AI. A digital pioneer who has been at the forefront of shaping customer experiences in sectors ranging from music services to telecom. Please join me in welcoming Mike Hales from BT and EE. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, it's great to be with you. Real pleasure.
It's our pleasure, Mike. Let's kick off things with a fun question. With your diverse background, what would it be if you were to describe your journey into AI using a movie title?
I think for any science fiction fans out there, I would definitely land on The Hobbit, A Hobbit's Tale There and Back Again. I think that would be very close, an analogy to the journey that I've been on.
I love The Hobbit as well. Now, diving into our main topics for today. Conversational AI is a buzzword we hear a lot these days. How do you see it revolutionizing the telecom industry?
For me, it really starts with customer service. I think that's where it's been most obviously, and businesses have been attracted to use conversational AI as a means to provide people with a personalized and effective customer solution, essentially getting them to their answer as quickly as possible. But I think it will grow beyond that into the sales realm as well. And in fact, I remember many years ago I had a conversation with someone, and I actually said I wish when I was first developing conversational AI chatbots for a telco that I'd started with sales rather than with service. As sales is a bit more structured and easier to some degree to build a conversation around, or to build the facets you need for a really good conversation. Service can go off in so many different directions. A customer's query could be any one of 100 different things that sometimes you have to compromise the answers in order to make sure that you've understood what they actually want. So I think for telco, it really, as I say, starts with service and will move into sales. And that doesn't necessarily just have to be text; it could be voice as well. There are many great tools out there that will allow you to build for both. But it's a slow burn process. It's not something you can roll out, because you only have to give people a bad experience once, and they won't come back.
That's very true. They're really eye-opening insights because the last part that you said, like, they just need one bad experience.
And it's very competitive space as well, because the customer's experience is not based on the last thing that they did with you. It's based on the last great interaction they had. So that's the bar you
Yep,
have to meet.
makes sense. Makes sense. Hey, moving on, you've seen the digital landscape evolve over the years. What would you say are the top five learnings in telco industry?
Absolutely. There have been many. The top five I would pick on would be, the first one would be around data management, and or data collection and management. So telcos especially have a vast array of data available to them, from usage through to customer logins, through to sales queries, through to service queries. And all of those things, if they're combined intelligently, can provide you with a really good picture that, as long as you've asked permissions of the customer, you can use to create a really strong, personalized and accurate experience, or rather streamlined experience for them, which is essentially what they're going for. They want to get to their answer, or the answer to their query, be it sales or service. They want to get to that quickly. So it gives you the chance to use that. The second one is artificial intelligence. That's really exploded in the last 6 months. But again, that use of data is made easier by the use of AI. AI is fantastic for picking out patterns and giving you indicators of areas to go and investigate. And if you use it in a way that you can pick up those flags and then use humans and their qualities to then dive and get more detailed answers. You're really onto a winner there. And then obviously as part of that AI growth, especially over the last, say, 10 years, conversational AI has been a key piece, and the rise of chatbots, or the use of chatbots. Um, Not always in the best ways, but more often than not, they're getting better step by step. I mean, there are many companies that do it very well now. It's a slow process, and I think that's what often companies don't realize is that it takes actually months, if not years, to really build something that is responsive and fits to your brand and speaks in the way that your customers would expect of your brand. I would also land on things like personalization. It's going to be a key differentiator for telcos. The product offerings are not a million miles away from each other, whether that's fixed line or it's mobile. Even with the different sort of services and partnerships they have, there's not enough of a difference to make customers readily switch from one to another. Um, Price is obviously going to be the biggest driver from one place to another, but personalization helps to make them feel warm and welcomed, and they stick with you if they feel familiar with the brand, despite the prices. And Apple's a great example of this. The people will stick with them because they know it, they trust it, and to some extent they would come to love it. And that personalization is a key plank in order for that to happen. And I think that also touches on a point for telcos in that they are desperate to move beyond being just a what's called a dumb pipe, just providing you with that connection. They want to, through personalization and other areas, build a greater relationship with you and offer you different services and products that sit on top of that connection, whether that's TV, gaming, music, any sorts of subscription-based services are incredibly attractive because they provide a recurring bundle of revenue, which is enormously valuable for telcos, where you do get peaks and troughs. And then lastly, I would pick on the trend for, and this isn't just telcos, to be fair, is a number of different companies, and they will jump to the latest thing. They will jump to what I call the shiny object syndrome. They often work with big players and take comfort from that. And the big players will come along and say, "Oh, we've got a new version of this CRM, this database, whatever the system is." And so the telco, "Oh, right, okay, well, we should get into that." And that's not a bad thing in itself, but when it's combined with a lack of discipline around maintaining your systems, cleaning your systems up, keeping them as lean as you possibly can, that can lead to exponential growth in technical debt. And for the first few months and possibly years, it doesn't really make that much of an impact. But then when you come to release a new set of products or a new service experience, suddenly the cost and the time taken in order to build it in the way that you want becomes massive and prohibitively so. So those would be the five things I would land upon.
Love it, love it. And all of these are very relatable, and I could see it in everyday's work that we do here. And our clients do this. All right. So the next one is what are the three mistakes in telecom industry that you see, and how do you address them?
I think the three would be relatively straightforward and interlinked. So I touched on it already, but data management and capture, that's been almost taken for granted and not really been addressed in a strategic and constructive way. It's incredibly valuable as a fuel for systems and services. It's absolutely crucial. And with the right sort of permissions and the right structures in place, you can glean all sorts of competitive advantages from it. So that's been one mistake where I think it's been known and it's been applied really around the network more than anything else for telcos, and effectively so. You've seen ever improving sort of network performance, not only in the UK but around the world. Um, but in terms of customer relationships, that same approach has not always been taken. So that's been one area that's been missed. I think the jump into AI is another challenge. I think that it was again seen as possibly a bit of a quick fix, Um, and it's not. It's something that requires the aforementioned data to be set up properly. It requires a really strong strategic view, and it requires a strong ethical view as well. If you're going to build an AI experience, you have to make sure that the data you use to train that AI is representative of your audience. It's very easy to sort of fall into the trap of taking a select set of data that perhaps only covers 20, 30, 40% of your audience. And so the AI you're going to build isn't really going to work properly for you and could lead you into all sorts of troubles, especially if you get into the really sensitive areas of sort of facial recognition or those sorts of areas. So AI has been a problem or a challenge, I think is a better phrase. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, it's really been around technical hygiene. So making sure that you sweat the asset you have as much as you possibly can rather than go and get the latest and greatest. Because that looks good, it looks like you're doing something. And short term, it may do so, but in other instances, it could really slow you down. I mean, I know one telco I've worked with, and I left many years ago, and the proposal that they had at the time to consolidate their technical base in and simplify it still hasn't been finished. And that's costing money every single day. It's costing money in terms of time spent on it and people being utilized to try and make it happen. And it's costing them in terms of the additional effort that anything new that has to be built on it has to go through. So those are the sort of main three that I've come across.
Design has been a significant part of your journey, and I just want to ask your expert opinion in this. Like, how and why do you think UI and design plays a pivotal role in being remembered as a brand, as a company, and how does that brings more sales and more trust within the customers?
It's fundamental. I mean, design is all about solving problems. And the UI side of things is about providing the simplest experience for the customer. So those two things combined, if they're done right, and obviously being simple is, as they say, the hardest thing to do, but if they're done right, then it gives you a better or a stronger reason to go back to that experience. Oh, I know that I'll be able to do this thing because I've done it before. It was really simple. I just did this, this, and this, and I got the result I was looking for. And if you combine that with a sense of personalization that, oh, they know who I am, they're going to make some recommendations. Oh, they seem quite tailored to me. And again, that's a double-edged sword. If you make recommendations, and Amazon to some extent have fallen foul of this. Because you go in and you buy that odd item for your niece, and then suddenly, every recommendation is based around the fact that you bought a Barbie doll or something similar for your niece, which is obviously, that's a very blunt degree of personalization. You bought this, therefore you'll buy that. So you have to sort of be careful and go a bit beyond that. And and that's where AI and data can combine to say, actually, there's this trend with this customer. They do this thing at this time in this way. Or conversely, hey, there's been a bit of an issue. They've been in contact a number of times. There could be a fight risk. Therefore, let's reach out proactively to them and pull them back into the fold, so to speak. So it's a combination, as I say, of that problem solving, of the structures that sit underneath, and then making the UI simple and intuitive. Um, and it's tempting often for companies to sort of go, well, we want to have our own particular stamp and so on and so forth. And so they try and create new patterns that align with their brand and their color schema and so on and so forth. But in many ways, they're actually better off lifting and repeating patterns that customers have seen elsewhere. That degree of familiarity leads to that sense of comfort. And so all of those things combined, and it is a stew, or it's a recipe that has to be carefully monitored in terms of the ingredients. That design in UI needs to have a little pinch of this and a little dab of that, and you have to keep testing it or tasting it as you go along. And most importantly of all, you get the feedback from the customers. They will very happily tell you what they like and what they don't like. And if you go and, as I say, you test it as you go through, you give them repeating patterns that they're familiar with. You've got a degree of personalization layered on top of that. That isn't a guarantee of success, but it'll get you a long way down the road towards it.
Brilliant, brilliant. This reminds me of a book. called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. And
Mm.
he says in that book, everything that needs to be said is already said. Say it again in a better way so that people would listen. So what you're saying reminds me of that. Like, don't try to, reinvent the wheel, but try to see what's working and do it in your own way, not try to invent everything from scratch. And, it makes a lot of sense.
It's about being really customer centric. If you step into the customer's shoes, and as I mentioned before, realize that their experience of your brand is one of 20, 30 different experiences they may have during the course of a day. You need to look at that holistic picture. Quite often, I've experienced where brands think, well, we're the absolute center of their universe. The customer is entirely going to be so upset or so excited by this minor change we make. Unfortunately, that's not the case. 99 times out of 100, customers will not even notice, and the very rarely raises as an issue. It's the exception rather than the rule. So it's a matter, as I say, of stepping into the customer's shoes, being aware that they are experiencing a broader range of things outside of just your brand, and that's, as I say, to your advantage. If you're seeing a successful pattern being used by a company that customers of yours are likely to be using, lift it and shift it, reuse it. There's nothing wrong with that. Great artists, steal, to quote Mr. Picasso.
These are very insightful, and I do agree with people wanting to jump into the AI train just because everyone is going in and not thinking about the data and so on. And also to have the latest and the greatest is not the actual best idea unless and until it serves your purpose. So I agree with you 100%. With this last question, we are coming to the end of our podcast, and you are our very first guest in this series, and it was a pleasure to have you. And is there anything that you want to tell our viewers?
I would say that the one thing I would take away from this conversation is to say that be aware of the trends and the exciting new things that are breaking through, but put them through the lens of, or put them through two lenses. Put them through the lens of, how does this benefit your customer? How will it impact them in a positive way, and endear you to them by your use and provision of them? And the second thing would really be around ensuring, as I mentioned, that you have a strong view and a strategic plan around what you want to do as a business. And therefore, if the shiny thing comes along, if it fits within your vision of what you want to do, absolutely go for it. Fantastic. Maybe it'll be an accelerant for you in the way that, for example, AI and image generation is really proven to be an accelerant for the architecture world, because small companies can now use things like Midjourney and others to create output to show to customers in 1/10 the time that it could previously. So that's where something like that can be adopted and brought into your plan. So as I say, it's, don't shy away from the new things. Just have a plan in place, and if it fits, go for it.
Love it. Love it. So, and to our viewers, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in depth discussions on the digital customer experience. So, drop us a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have for our future guests. Until next time, stay curious and keep innovating. This is Danny here from Kiosk.